to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Hello and welcome to Two Roads Crossing. I'm your host, Curtis Gibbs, where we explore the intersection of faith and veterinary medicine. And today we're on the road with Dr. K. Lauren. I almost want to call you Pinley. I think I've
I know it happens.
known you from the days of this right here.
Exactly. Yep.
I think, I guess for those listening, I just pointed to a Wolfpack banner. Dr. Lauren Killilea with us. Thank you for joining the podcast today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's great to be a part of this. I love it.
Yeah, I think you were the first, you might have been the first CVF officer I ever met, perhaps, because that might have been my first ever school visit. So you were certainly the first one at NC State, president, and did such a great job there. So it's just been fun to, yeah, know you since then. So
It's been a long time. I think it was 2017.
that's be
It was
correct.
2017. So we've been friends for a long time,
We've
Curtis.
been we've been at this a little while now. Yeah, I think we did a real life real impact at Lincoln Memorial. We joined one that there. I think that year might have been there, and you certainly set up all the great stuff with the CVMF group there. So we're just yeah, super fun. And now, like, tell us where you are. You got a little one, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, so graduated from NC State Vet School in 2019. I found my workplace home as a veterinarian. As a technician first, we'll get into that story in a minute. But found my home as a technician, then a veterinarian in Holly Springs at Trinity Animal Hospital. Holly Springs is about like it's probably 20 minutes outside of Raleigh. So Southwest Raleigh, not too far from the city. So we stayed local after graduation. And we've had some ups and downs personally, but my husband and I now have a little one. He just turned 1 year old a few weeks ago, and his name is Keegan, and he is such a blessing. He's such a happy, happy boy. And he loves his daycare, which is great for mommy and dad going to work. Don't have to worry about him because they love him back. So, but yeah, I'm in small animal practice. That's what Trinity Animal Hospital is. Small animal practice, dogs and cats. I do surgery once a week. I work full days, 3 days a week. So I love it. It's a really great workplace. So I
It,
love my work family.
I mean, and so you've been there since you graduated, right? That's a good run at a first. But before we get in the story, let me get a thought of how did you find the spot that was going to click so well? You got any pointers for those that are looking for a good work culture?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this place kind of found me in a way. So when I was in vet school, I worked as a veterinary assistant with Banfield, just because it was so flexible with hours. As you guys know, if you guys are students that are listening, like it's hard to work on the weekends, but and with exams and things. And so I worked out of Banfield just with flexible hours and things. Um, and my practice manager at that time during vet school, I loved her, loved working with her. She was so sweet and awesome. And then during vet school, she left to go to private practice. And I had no idea where she was going or what happened. But when my husband and I moved to Holly Springs during my clinical year, I don't recommend moving during clinical year. That was that was stressful.
That's a lot.
But we had to move. So we moved during clinical year to Holly Springs, and I just in between clinical rotations, I would stop at a Starbucks or drop something off at UPS, and I saw my old boss
Hmm.
like that I worked with at Banfield occasionally, around the town. Had no idea she moved to Holly Springs too. But each time she invited me to come see her practice. I was like, I don't know. I mean, I got these other places I'm looking at for a job, I don't know. And, we'll get into my story later, but I ended up she was a practice manager at Trinity Animal Hospital. And so I went to go see the practice and fell in love with the culture. So,
Yeah.
they have they still to this day stand by our mission statement, our purpose, our core values. Like the practice owner had already set aside these goals to represent our hospital on a daily basis, try our best anyway, so when you're trying to find, to answer your question, Curtis, like when you're trying to find a practice, make sure one, you do a working interview. Either, especially going to being a veterinarian, if you can do a working interview for, not just one day, but maybe a couple days,
Yeah.
just so you can get that
Easy to
really good
paper over some
vibe.
stuff for a few hours, but you can't hide the
Yeah.
warts if it's a couple days. Yeah.
Yeah, and that way you get to see the experience of like, okay, you get to see how surgeries run, you get to see how rooms operate, you get to a feel for your technician staff and your reception staff, or if they have a hotel, you can kind of get a feel for the people you're going to be working with because that's, clients, they come and go for that 30 minutes to an hour of an appointment, but those people that are with you in those nit-gritty situations or they're all day, every day that you work, you want to make sure that you can have like a good relationship with those people.
Sure.
And it's not, I mean, every person you may not get along with great, but at least to know that you respect each one of those people, right? So, um, you know, uh, our core values, servant heart, teamwork, reliability, and integrity. That's kind of the four core values that we've focused on. Our mission statement is, to build relationships, emphasize convenience, so the pets live happier, healthier, and longer lives. So, and when I interviewed, they kind of stuck to that.
Yeah.
So I was a tech there, then I became a veterinarian, and coming up on year year three of being a vet there. I
Yeah.
was a technician there for 2.5 years. So yeah.
Well, that's just a thing on the mission statement. A lot of people have them. Very few people can recite them. And so that means it's core to what y'all do if you can bring it forward, right? Like everybody's like, oh, we need a mission statement. And then it'll be on the background. And then if you like cover people's eyes and say, what's our mission statement? It's like, I know it's that thing I
Uh,
walked by on the door. Like, but it's clearly a part of y'all's core if you can say
mhm.
it. I mean, that even happens at churches, like, or businesses. It's
Yeah.
like all of a sudden you ask somebody what the mission statement is, and it's supposed to be important, but they're like, oh, so we do this thing? Like, yeah. So, um, well, as of recording this, you know, the timing of recording this and releasing this is right around the time that the NAVLE results came out, and we obviously started our relationship with you as a student, and you've moved in your professional life and married life and mom life and all that, and one of the reasons we want to have you on the pod is you came down to Real Life Real Impact at St. George a few years ago to share your story of the NAVLE because it didn't go the way you wanted it to the first round, and we have uh, I don't want to say lots, but maybe it is. It's actually a good number of people that go through that every year, and this is kind of that time of the year that those results come out, and then people are looking at rescheduling for April or next year, whatever the case may be for some of our people. And you did such a good job of sharing some encouragement and your story with that at Real Life Real Impact. I wanted to see if you'd join us today to share that on the
Yeah.
podcast for some of those individuals. And so, how about give us a little bit of your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you might have, caught with my testimony there and how long I've been at Trinity for my animal hospital for a little bit. My timeline's a little off. So I mentioned I graduated in 2019 of May from NC State Vet School. However, I didn't become a veterinarian there until 2022. So interesting timeline gap. So fourth year clinicals, and if you're a student listening, if you were a student, studying during clinicals for the NAVLE, there's not a lot of time to do that, right? You have so many responsibilities as a student. You're taking care of patients, you're working with interns and residents and clinicians, and there's a lot of pressure to study outside of your own responsibilities as a student still. So, and not, this was NC State's timeline. I know that some vet schools have different years of when they do clinicals, when they do rotations and things. But I took the NAVLE in November of 2018. I then, continued on. After you take that exam, you are exhausted. It's 360 questions, a little over 1 minute per question. And it's exhausting. It's about 7.5 hours if you take all your breaks, and
Ooh.
you leave very like defeated. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't pass. I don't know how many people have that reaction, like, oh, I don't know if I passed or not.
I think
And
that's the
so,
only answer I've ever gotten a student when I text or ask them how it went. I don't know that I've ever
yeah,
gotten anybody that has left that room feeling victorious for whatever reason, you know?
yeah, maybe like feeling accomplished that is done, but like you still feel like so exhausted. And so, and of course there's like 2 months of a period potentially, depending on when you take the exam, but like 1 to 2 months or for in October too, where, it's a long time before you get those results, right? So like you just go about your clinical days, and um it's always the third week of January. Usually, I know that. But third week of January, you get the results. And I was one of the students that did not pass my first go around. It was pretty bad. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Um, and so, that first experience, when you get that four-letter word that's not pass, it says fail. And I truly felt every emotion you can imagine. I felt like a failure. All my friends were posting on Facebook and Instagram and, on social media, oh my gosh, I passed. Woo. And, it's hard when you're not in that position, or your friends and study groups that studied with the past 3 years with, and you develop those relationships, and they pass, but you don't. So I felt shame. I felt disappointed in myself. I felt disappointed. I felt guilty that maybe obviously I didn't study enough. When could I have added more time? You go back in time, you just think about, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. And it's hard because, okay, then you have to like collect yourself and be like, okay, well, the next window of opportunity to take it is only 2.5 months away.
That
And
that is
so then
not
it's like a
that far.
panic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like a panic of like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this to, bump up my score to passing, right? Um, and they give you a breakdown of, I think they still do this. I know it's been a few years, but like canine, feline, bovine, equine, and then like other, or like maybe pigs and other. I can't remember exactly, but and that's all they give you. That's the only feedback that you get. So panic starts to set in, but then you have to like really get past that to take it again and schedule your next exam in April. Um, so I hit the ground running. I like early mornings at Starbucks, they open at 5:30, some of them. So I was early morning at
You know
Starbucks, and
this.
then you had
You know this.
and
Yeah.
then you had clinical rotations, and then I was late night at the main campus NC State Library because they were open 24 hours. And so I would stay there until 11 p.m., midnight, and then go to bed, do the same thing. So lots of coffee, lots and lots of coffee. Um, to try my best to get ready for this next NAVLE number two in April of 2019. So, uh, so took it, felt better. I felt better. Um, but not great again, and then you have to wait for your exam results, right? Like, so I actually graduated. I walked the stage. I got my doctorate because I want you guys to know, no matter if you pass or fail the NAVLE, that does not define you as a doctor. Okay. You guys still walk that stage. You still get that doctorate. You guys have worked hard for, 3 to 4 years of your veterinary career so far to get that piece of paper. And that's powerful. It's a very powerful meaning for you to still walk across that stage, right? At that point, I still did not know if I had passed the NAVLE. I did have a signed contract already with a hospital to be their veterinarian starting in the summer. Um, and 3 days after graduation, I got that email and I found out I failed again. Um,
Not a big,
so,
not a big honeymoon period that like, right? Like, I mean, you're still Dr. K at that point. I think it's important to
yeah,
highlight. But
I mean, I'm still Dr. K, but it's like, oh, my, I mean, at that point, I'm like, okay, well, now I have to tell have unexpected news to my future boss, potentially future boss, not anymore, but I had to tell them that I didn't pass, and to rip up the contract, right? Because I wasn't going to be ready by the summertime, obviously. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. I have to pay my bills. Like I have to get a job at some point. Um, I looked into, the protocols of when to take the NAVLE next. Um, and I was like, you know what? My dream of these, undergrad to vet school, my dream was to be a veterinarian, practicing veterinarian. I have my doctorate, but I'm not ready to look for other options yet, So I um I went ahead and I knew I was going to take the NAVLE November of 2019 again. So number three, trial number three. And I was like, I have to pay my bills. I have to still support my husband. I still, have to take care of my dogs. At that point, we still needed money help, right? I couldn't
sure.
just study for NAVLE and that be it. Um, so that's actually when I found, as I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about Trinity and how I found this hospital, that's actually around the timeline, like a couple weeks later, I think after not passing the NAVLE, is when I started seeing my old practice manager around Holly Springs, like here and there, different places, UPS stores, Starbucks, a Chinese restaurant. So I saw her multiple places over the course of like 2 to 3 weeks after graduation. I was like, you know what? I'll go see it. I need a job. I'll go see it. I'll see what they have as an option. So, went for an interview. They hired me as a technician, or veterinary assistant, veterinary assistant slash technician because I had a doctorate. So, I just didn't have the sheet of paper to let me practice medicine.
Yeah.
And so, I still studied. I worked full time, 4 to 5 days a week, however many hours I needed to get, full paycheck. And then I studied hard. I was like, I need to really work on these questions. Um, oh, by the way, with my number two trial, I only failed by 4 points. I missed passing by 4 points. Much better than the first time, but it still was so, so close. And they toss out so many questions. Um, so maybe like, and it goes through your mind like, oh my gosh, maybe they tossed out a question I actually got right.
That could have
And that
put
would
you
have
in.
boosted
Yeah,
me over the edge, right? So then you got those feelings of like, oh, if only, the majority of the students got that one wrong too,
sure.
or got that one right too. Um, so then focus on, okay, do I need to focus on canine or feline or, bovine, whatever sections you need to focus on. That's what I did. Apparently I flipped my focus areas, um, because trial number three, I did not pass again.
Hmm.
November 2019 came along. I took it over one day, felt exhausted. When I got those results back in um, January of 2020, it was, oh man, the anxiety, the stress, the, feelings of like lost hope, defeat, failure, all the emotions come running to you. Like, and once again, I had to relay to um, another boss because I felt really good and confident about NAVLE number three. Um, I had interviewed for jobs. I had a signed contract. And the day that I found out my results was the day I was going to have like a phone call to talk about the contract and make sure everything was finalized. So like that night, I had a planned phone call with my potential future boss at that time, but that conversation didn't go exactly talking about the contract. It was letting him know I failed again.
Wow.
Um, so, um, yeah, so I mean, it's, yeah, so that was hard, just not knowing. And, you know, I decided to give myself a break from studying. I was like, you know what? Let me just focus on my work, focus on my job, focus on my faith, because, you know, with going through so many hills and valleys of emotions, you know, roller coasters for 3 times, like you really question if this was the right path for you, if you, what God really has planned for you, you know, why is this, you question, why is this a part of my plan journey? What am I doing wrong? Eh, Did I completely choose the wrong career at some point? You know, you start questioning um, your faith. And so, you know, I had to really take some time for myself to reflect with God, reflect with myself. And um, Philippians 3, 13 through 14, I'll read it to you guys. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do is forgetting what is behind and um, staring toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Jesus Christ. So with with that, you know, I still, you know, I still felt that drive. There were too many things in my heart, in my faith journey that was still pointing me to becoming a practicing veterinarian. Um, and so I looked into it, and um, turns out you have to wait a whole year between your third and fourth and fifth attempts.
Mm.
So I wasn't able to take it in January in April of 2020. I had to wait a whole year until November, hence the break, hence the
Sure.
break. And so I had to take a break anyway. And so, you know, I made up my mind I was going to take it a fourth time. Um, my husband and I, you know, we decided like, hey, let's kind of, you know, do we want to like, we had a plan that, you know, being in practice for a couple years, then start having kids. Well, obviously it had been a year and a half or so, or a year since had like graduating, and I wasn't sure what our timeline was. So, you know, we focused on, you know, studying, and then also just kind of maybe having kids. We'll see.
Yeah. Sure.
And yeah, so but I still knew like I wanted to pass. I wanted that peace of mind that I didn't leave anything behind. I wanted to make sure I left all my like all those emails that said the 4-letter word of fail. I kind of switched my mindset, be like, okay, I didn't necessarily fail. So I'm still here. I'm still willing to conquer this thing. I just didn't pass.
Mm.
And again, it was within, I think that time it was within like 5 or 6 points of not passing. So again, it was so close, so close. Um, but by, you know, when you're taking your fourth attempt, you have so much anxiety, right? Like with test taking in general, I remember GRE, the SAT back in high school, like I had test anxiety then, and it carried me through. And what's frustrating is like if the board or whoever decides the NAVLE scores, if they could just come and see me in practice, like see how I am as a technician, see how I am during clinicals as a doctor, you know, or student, if they could just come and see me, I would pass with flying colors. Like I would pass, I promise.
Yeah.
You know, but this test isn't just on dogs and cats, it's on everything. And so, you know, the anxiety crept in about like, okay, well, what do I need to do to like help me pass? Like what preparation wise do I need to change? So one thing is, you know, if you have any test anxiety, I would recommend extra time. So there is somewhere on their website that you can go and request to take the exam over 2 days rather than one day. It gives you double the amount of time for each question. You do half the exam one day and half the exam the next day. So it's you get a break, you get sleep, you know, I think you get longer breaks in between sections. So I think that really helped kind of ease my anxiety.
Mhm.
And then it's a little expensive, but well worth it. And my hospital actually helped me pay for it as well. But it's called Stat Med Learning. It's a course. You can do it privately in a group. But and they primarily work with med students, but you can do it as a veterinarian. And it's two guys. I believe it's still two guys, but they give you tools to how to break down these what's called three-tier questions because there's a history, there's, maybe a diagnostic, test results. And then they ask you, okay, what would be the preventative option for this diagnosis? Well, you have to figure out what diagnosis they're talking about based on your question to even be able to start to think about, this third tier question, right? And so they help you break it down. They help you have a strategy for each question on how to answer each question. So highly, highly, highly recommend StatMed, SAT, in big capital letters, med learning course.
Mm.
That really just helps me have a baseline of how to answer any question, whether it's three paragraphs, whether it's one paragraph, whether it's two sentences. And I stuck with that process. And so it's really phenomenal course. Yeah, so that's two things. If you have any type of test anxiety, ask for extra time. It's a very simple process. Um, and I would say they usually grant it to you because they know kind of how stressful it is.
Yeah,
So
one of our region reps that would happen to be a veterinarian um, had her learning and or testing style and skill set. People learn differently, but there's this one
yeah.
test, and her, you know, she's sharp as it can be, but she needed that extra time, because of just
Mhm.
how she was wired. Yep. So yeah, that's a great point to look into. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have time. They usually, if you guys are planning to take it, if you're a current student, planning to take it in April, go ahead and send that request in. If you guys are having any anxiety about taking it again, um, go ahead and put that request in, make it a priority. You guys can do it. Um, and then, for the fourth time, I didn't pass again. I uh it hit a little differently. Again, I think this one was 3 points away from passing, somewhere in that very close range again. Um, I only, and then, you find out you don't pass and you're like, oh my goodness, you only have 5 attempts in your lifetime. You can take this test. Only 5 attempts. That's it. They put a cap on how many times you can take this test. So I had just taken my fourth. Um, and I felt so good leaving, right? So I had the strategy. I took it over 2 days. I had this full on strategy to make it work. And I got the email once again that I didn't pass. Tears were shed for a fourth time. Um, and I only had, again, one attempt left. So, it's at that point, I think my parents and my husband were a little more upset about, why this wasn't happening, why I wasn't passing all these things, not at me, but questioning him and
Yeah.
questioning, his path for me and his plan. Like, why would he put me through that again? Like, why would he allow this to happen again? Um, for me, my mindset at that point was obviously this is obviously this is part of his plan. Like, there's got to be some, you know, I'm doing everything I can. I'm doing as much as I can. And this is what he has planned for me. Like I've overcome so much that I dreamed of being a practicing veterinarian, but maybe there is a plan B out there for me. I don't know. And maybe again, maybe my story at that time will touch some other people's hearts. And um, you know, it changes. It changed a little bit about my perspective. So at that point, I was like, okay, well, maybe there's plan Bs. I have my doctorate. Maybe there's a plan B. Um, and so I started looking at other professions. not a practicing veterinarian, small animal veterinarian, but I loved coaching basketball. I loved teaching. So maybe I could become a teacher, an instructor. Absolutely. You don't need a practicing license for that. Um, I could get my certification in rehabilitation and, help, manage a rehab hospital. I was a sports person, so and did tons of rehab
Cool.
with that.
Yeah.
Um, and I loved veterinarian rehabilitation. So maybe I could, be a manager of a rehab hospital. Who knows? Um, and so, I started thinking of plan Bs, but then I was like, I only get 5 tries, but I don't want to have that what if for the rest of my life. Like, what if I didn't try that fifth time? What if I didn't take it that fifth time? And maybe that's when I pass. I don't know. Who knows, right? So I had a reflection on my journey and I touched people's lives already as a technician. Um, and I even as a technician, I had all the knowledge of the veterinarian. So when my veterinarians were, finishing up the rooms, they trusted me to, go over lots of things like medication, side effects, ease their minds about puppy training and things like that.
Sure.
I did a lot of client education. Like I had my own like LK, not doctor, but LK as technician, requests. They wanted me to be their technician. Obviously that didn't happen all the time, but we tried. And at that point in time, I had 2 dogs at that point. I had so many blessings in my life, my husband, my family, my work family that I developed a close relationship with, and my practice managers, they were so supportive. And, it I didn't want to have that why. Like I didn't want to say like what if. And so I took my last attempt. I went for it. And you know what? Going to that fifth attempt, you would think there would be more anxiety, but there actually wasn't.
Hmm.
It was so interesting, Curtis. Like that fifth attempt, I felt so much lighter
Hmm.
going into that fifth attempt. I didn't feel this weight on my shoulders because I had plan Bs, not just that reason. I literally just that year of that studying was, I think, different because I didn't, I had plan Bs, but I gave it all to him.
Hmm.
I was like, you know what, God, you have brought me through so many challenges in my lifetime through high school and college, during vet school. I could go into all of my testimony, but the podcast would be too long. Um, so, he has brought me through so many life journeys and challenges, and, my faith has always remained in him. And that's what I focused on. I was like, you know what? If I hadn't have passed, I wouldn't have found this work family. If I hadn't have passed, I wouldn't have found our second dog, Holly. If I hadn't have passed, my relationship with God may have not grown as much as it did that 3.5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
So I did take it a fifth time. I gave it all I got and, felt just so much more joy leaving that exam, not to be done, not to be finished, but joy in the fact that I still had so much to look forward to for the future, no matter what the results were. Um, so, after 2 weeks of taking the exam, found out I was pregnant. It's great. It was beautiful. Found out I was pregnant. So that was awesome. But then January 21st rolled around of 20, oh gosh, this was 2021. Yeah, 2022. 2022. January 2022. And that morning I had a miscarriage.
Hmm.
Um, very unexpected. But we had an ultrasound the previous day and they said everything looked great. So we'll always remember January 2021. But yeah, we had miscarriage. So, that morning I was calling people, letting them know that, of course, immediate family. We hadn't told
Sure.
everybody yet, but immediate family letting them know that we had miscarriage. But guess what? 8 hours later, I got an email saying I passed.
Same. I
Yay!
mean, gosh.
Um, talk about roller coaster emotions. When I got that email, I didn't open it. I was like, I had no more tears that day. Like my eyes were completely dry. I couldn't even have my contacts in. I was crying so much. So, I I gave my husband my phone. I was like, honey, I can't deal with any more tears today. Like you need to take this. Like open it and take it. And when he yelled, "You passed," I jumped in the air so quick. I think Holly went in the floor.
Sure.
Holly or Sammy went in the floor unexpectedly. Like I jumped in the air. We like celebrated for like 20 seconds, and then we're like, oh, it's just like set in. Like, oh my gosh. Like, so on the same day we have a miscarriage, I found out I passed this huge journey that I've been working for since 2019, even before when I started vet school. Like, you could include those 4 years in it too. Like, I finally passed. So you can imagine the roller coaster emotions, like happiness, still sadness, but like so thankful to blessings, to finding that joy in the midst of a valley. Like, it was so hard,
I'm not
so
sure
many
anyone's
emotions,
ever
Curtis.
had a day with such extreme points on the same 24-hour
Oh,
span, right? I mean, how do you,
yeah.
yeah, you won't forget that day. And yeah, that probably took a little while to unpack, right? Too, just to,
Well, and then, we're then calling our family members to tell them like I passed. So it was like 8 hours before we were all crying on the phone. And then 8 hours later we were, telling them I passed and having like happy tears.
yeah,
So it
yeah.
was just so much to unpack. So, so much.
I mean, even now,
Yeah.
interviewing, talking with you about it, I'm like, how do I respond? Even knowing your story, and you alluded to it already. Y'all have a happy, healthy baby at home now, etc. So like,
Yeah.
you've moved past a loss and into this, that has now come to fruition, and it's a great start to your family. And but even now, yeah, you look at that day and you look at that journey and how those things just happen to collide on the
Hmm.
same day. That's a lot. And like
That's
how
a lot.
God knew that, but sometimes, and we're allowed to question God. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing. I think sometimes we feel that questioning God is like questioning his goodness or questioning his omnipotence or his no, it's not a sin to question God. The Bible makes that clear if we read
Yeah.
it. So we're like, oh, if we question God, it's like doubting faith. No, he can take it. And
Yeah.
that's the day you have to go, God, could we have like separated these things a little bit, but whatever, this is God. It's well,
Yeah.
congratulations, Dr. K.
Yes.
You've
Thank
always been
you.
Dr. K, but made it through. How was
Yeah. So,
telling the clinic and all that? It had to be kind of fun to share
oh,
the success of that, the successful part of that day with your staff and your clinic. And I bet they
oh
were.
my gosh, they were so over the moon. They got me a cookie cake with "Congrats, Dr. K" on it.
Mhm.
It was a good celebration. They knew obviously also what had happened with the miscarriage, but they were so excited and so ready for me to start my journey as a veterinarian there. Um, and so my first day as a vet was March 1st, 2022, and I've been loving it ever since. Like I've been there, and it's so fun because some of my technician days, a lot of those clients actually transferred over to, with me being their veterinarian.
Oh wow.
That was an adjustment for some didn't know my story. They were like, weren't you my technician
Don't
last
I remember
time? And now
you?
you're my vet.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
okay.
Mm.
But they were great. I mean, the clientele that we have at Trinity is outstanding. They're phenomenal. So, it was a very easy transition too. Like the support staff, the reception team, the technician team, they were so behind me and transitioning from Lauren to Dr. K. The name change was a little interesting.
Sure.
And then like kind of, the not thinking me necessarily of like a boss, but still, being their support, being their advocate, because I knew what it was like. I think that's a huge blessing in this process
Oh
is
wow.
that
I didn't think
I
of that.
knew
Yeah.
I knew what they go through as technicians. I know all their responsibilities as technicians at Trinity. Like I know that whole process. I was a receptionist, a lot of the time too. So I worked in the hotel as well to help shifts over there. So, I think that's one of the blessings that came out of being a technician first and then a veterinarian at this hospital because I had those experiences. Like um, I had those, times to kind of enjoy. And, I will say, with those students that, are having a hard time, even if you guys take it in April and say at graduation, you're still not sure about your journey or you get those same four-letter word that you're not expecting, there are blessings in the storms. They really are. So, if you become a technician, you kind of follow the same journey I had where become a technician, you take your exam again. That technician time is so, so valuable. I've learned it now, but you're able to teach your fellow technicians and assistants like the knowledge, like when you're doing x-rays with them, like what you're looking for, what you're looking at, but they don't. So then you're able to teach them what you're looking at. Yeah, side effects of medications that maybe others don't, or vaccine things. You have so much of this knowledge. You're able to share that. And then with that time as being a technician, I was also very observant. So I was able to observe and be a surgery tech for so many surgeries. And I observed how you close this mass removal, how you do this spleen removal, how you take out those teeth. And so when I became a veterinarian, I was already that transition time was very short. When you come out as a fresh graduate, and you're sometimes, depending on the practice, thrown in the deep end,
Sure.
right? And you may not have much mentorship, or you may not have, as much teaching time or learning experience to kind of have that buffer. And so it can be nerve-wracking for a lot of fresh new grads. But it's invaluable when, you're a technician first a little bit. I kind of liked my journey now looking back,
Oh, sure.
because I was able to have all that time to learn how to do teeth extractions that you don't learn in school. You don't learn how to do dental extractions, and that's most of my surgeries. And now I love it. So, I'm the person they go to with dental extractions. Like when I have colleagues that are struggling with teeth removal, even though I've only been a vet for 3 years, I love it and that's my passion. So they ask me, which is amazing, right? So, um, there's so many blessings in the midst of those valleys that you feel guilt, you feel disappointed, you feel questioned, you feel like you're questioning your faith, questioning your path. One of the pastors at my church said, "Our God brings blessings and fresh starts, but also brings challenges and oppositions when following God."
Hmm.
And he brings you challenges. He brings you not necessarily he brings the challenges, but there's always the devil. There's always, things in this life fighting against your faith and you being so strong, realizing so many blessings in your life, giving you those fresh starts. That's what God brings to the table. He brings so much goodness. And I know it's in the moment, it's so hard to find the goodness in the midst of a valley, in the midst of a storm. But I promise you, it's gonna be okay. It's
Hmm.
gonna be all right. Um, it will, you'll get through it. You will. And it just is hard to see it in the moment. And I get it. And Curtis, if you want to share my personal information, I please do. Um, you can tag me in I know you're going to post this on Facebook maybe, but you can tag me in it. I will personally, I want to be your guys' advocate. I want to be your advice. So yeah, so that's kind of like my story. And doubts, fears, there's always an open door. There's always an open window. God presents it to you in sometimes a way you don't expect. But it's been a beautiful journey. Hard, but beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, you can we'll post you know um it in the podcast notes. Podcast at cvm.org is a good place to reach me or find me on the CVM website. You can find Lauren, you can find her on social media. She's out there and um well Lauren, knowing some of the and even then it's funny, we record this on a Friday. We were going to record this on a Wednesday. You happen to be in a car accident on a Wednesday. You're looking good, feeling good, but like
Yeah,
there's all
thanks.
these an even more serious part of your journey. Just doing life together. I know that, you know, you walked through a serious thing, health thing with your husband that just out of nowhere. It- so the NAVLE part isn't the only spot that you have walked through some big things in your young life, in your young
Mhm.
marriage and career, and obviously the miscarriage. That's a big, a traumatic thing
Yeah.
that takes walking through. What what are some keys to some of that resilience, or some of that hope? What are some things that,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
with, I mean, Curtis, you mentioned, I talked about the miscarriage. 10 days later, I also had ectopic pregnancy rupture. I didn't mention that, but I had an ectopic pregnancy rupture on my left side, fallopian tube. I was at work and got a serious phone call that kind of got my blood pressure rising, I think. Um, and so it ruptured while I was at work. So I left work in an ambulance. I passed out, left work in an ambulance, had emergency surgery that evening, and this was February 1st of that same year that I passed the NAVLE. So it was very soon after I passed the NAVLE that I had a very serious life-threatening surgery. Um, Obviously doing okay now, but I was down to one side of having to have a kid, so have a baby. And so, that's part of my journey. To Curtis mentioned my husband, he had a stroke last year. He was 34 at the time, 35 now, but, um, 34 at the time, and he was taking care of our son. He had a AV malformation in his brain, probably had his whole life, and it ruptured. So, he was paralyzed on the right side, couldn't talk, completely aphasic. But he's doing great now. He is, running, he's driving to work, only 10 months post stroke, and he's doing fabulous. So, to answer your question, Curtis, like things that have really brought me through is scripture. So really, really diving into scripture of, finding those verses that really touch your heart. Um, I have a couple here in a document if you guys want to write these down. Philippians 3:13 through 14, I already went over. Um, 1 Peter 5, chapter 5, 6 through 7 is a really good one to look at. And then, songs. I was really into listening to music. The number of hours I spent studying, I needed some, background noise. And then, of course, songs that really just lifted me up when I was either driving to go study or while I'm studying, or, especially the drive to go take the test. Um, these songs were on repeat. So I'm
Mm.
going to list those out for you guys in case you want to write them down while you're listening. But Even Then by Micah Tyler, Unfinished with Mandisa, Strong Enough by Matthew West, Overcomer by Mandisa. What If was a big one. Matthew West, when trying to decide if I wanted to take that fourth and fifth attempt. Haven't Seen It Yet by Danny Goki. That one is one of my favorite songs of all time. Um, Talking about, haven't seen the goodness yet, but it's coming.
Mm.
And knowing that he's always going to be by your side. It's a huge part of like, and then Joy, two others, Joy by Johnny Diaz, and then Every Step of the Way by Cade Thompson. Just knowing that God is carrying you through, He's with you every step of the way. I know I keep on repeating the title, but just I would really focus if you guys like listening to music, listening to rock Christian music, really listen to the lyrics of these songs. I can't tell you enough how much these lyrics really impacted my drive, my hope, my faith
Mm.
during this whole these the last 10 years really. Um, and it's been quite a journey, and these songs really, really helped me kind of lift me up and all these songs are based on scripture. Like
Sure. Yeah.
search, part of these lyrics and they're actually Psalms or in the Philippians, they're, um, so taking a break, if you're studying, taking a break to open up your Bible and look at some Psalms, um, those really, really helped impact kind of the way I reacted to the failing of the NAVLE or not passing the NAVLE. Really helped lift me up.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you sharing, your story and your journey with us, and um, to encourage, the next generation of students, next generation of young doctors, but even those that are going through other things. I mean, you've been
Yeah.
walking through the health challenges. Y'all have had some things, and yet here you are, and you guys are doing good. What's next for Dr. K? You're rocking on at your same clinic, life moving forward from there. What?
Yep, yep. So my husband and I are probably going to stay pretty local. We're looking for, buying our own place, which is exciting. In the next couple of years. Maybe talking about baby number two at some point. That's exciting. But probably a little bit longer. It's a longer wait on that one.
He'll learn that
Um,
when he listens to the podcast. No, 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 just teasing.
and then just staying. I love Trinity. It's really a home away from home. Like the leadership team, um, the team itself, there's nothing like it.
Mm.
There's nothing like it. So probably gonna stay in this practice, for
Yeah.
a little bit longer at least, maybe ever, forever, but we'll
Been a
see.
good
We'll see
run
what God
already. Yeah.
has in store for us. Not sure.
Yeah, when you find something good out there, right? And it's just
Hmm.
like, wow, I love where I work. That's hard to, you spend a lot of time there, spend a lot of life there
Yeah.
with those people. So, well, let's end with our kind of three big questions that we kind of like to hit on. And so the first one is, what's a fun or funny story from being in vet medicine?
Yeah. So, funny story is a couple of my most recent hires, I shouldn't say our most recent hires as veterinary assistants or technician assistants. Um, they made side comments while working on a dog one day, and um, her name is Morgan, and she commented on how intimidating I was. And I was like, I don't think I'm intimidating. I'm
Only
not
playing
scary.
basketball. Yeah, only in that challenge that we have of one-on-one do I find you. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, I don't think I'm intimidating by my personality and things. But she meant it as like a compliment. And she was like, no, you're intimidating because I really don't want to disappoint you. You're like a mom. Like it's the worst type of disappointment. If I do something wrong, like you're intimidating because I think of you as a mom. And so it's just we cracked up laughing and she actually made a comment. She's the first person that probably has ever called me funny. Like that has said it actually to my face. I don't think I'm that funny. But apparently I make these like side comments and then I just like walk away
Yeah.
from the situation. It's funny, it's hilarious, but
That's a
I
comedic
they come
exit,
out
you know?
naturally for me, so I don't think they're like funny. I'm actually kind of usually being serious in those moments and making those side comments. And these comments are in the best way. Um,
Sure, sure.
and
Yeah.
then I just continue on. I walk off, but apparently it's really funny.
Hey,
So
do a whole
I
Seinfeld
never
episode on that. You realize you said something, you drop the mic, you walk off. You just yep, yep,
exactly.
yep. Love it. Well, tell me, why do you love veterinary medicine?
Yeah, I love veterinary medicine because I mean, not only do I love the patients, and you probably don't hear this often, but um I love the clients too. I absolutely love bringing education to them, spending time with them, getting to know them as people with their families, and um, the furry family members are also their furry kids, and so they're part of the family and being able to be the pet's advocate when maybe the owners don't understand that they're in pain or, um, being their advocate to also to like make sure their owners know all the information, and being able to kind of be their being the client's advocate too, and developing those relationships with the client. It's probably my favorite part.
Oh, that's lovely. All right, what's one last thing you'd like to leave our listeners with or say to encourage them?
Yeah, when you get unexpected news, no matter if it's the NAVLE, family illnesses, death in the family, um, I want you guys to know it's okay to question why. It's okay to, um, have those guilty feelings, have those shame feelings, be disappointed. You're gonna go through all of the emotions they say of grief, but you're going to go through all of those emotions because it's a change. It's something that changed your plan, changed your what you thought was going to be your immediate action of, weeks down the road or months or years down the road. Like it's going to change, but knowing I want you guys to have encouragement from the word, from the Bible, from songs, from books. Just find something that can kind of help answer why. Um, and you may not never find that answer why. For me, it was when I became a veterinarian and learning, like, wow, that time being a technician was actually a huge blessing for me. I don't have the nerves as a new grad, like a new grad may experience because I know a lot of these things. I know what to do for this skin and ear patient. Like, when things come at you unexpected, try to find hope, try to find the faith, and God, He's going to hold your hand through it. He is standing right beside you. He is taking every step of this path with you. Know that and believe that. Like, try to get that full heartedly because once you give it all to Him, it's amazing how much lighter you feel, how much uplifted you feel in those moments while processing all of it, and processing those changes.
I remember you saying that fifth time that you went in there, you felt light. You felt, that had to have been the Lord, just.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I just knew he was each click of that mouse, like you could say like I went with my gut, but like honestly, with each answer to that question, I was like, all right, here you go, God. That's my answer. All right, you got that one too? Great. Next. Okay, we got this.
Well, it wouldn't be a good ending to a veterinary podcast for those that actually watch it without a dog in the screen. So there you go. This is Elko here joining us for the end here. But Dr. K, thank you for sharing your story with us, and for
Yeah.
first sharing it at St. George and some other places live. But it's great to get this in podcast form so it can encourage vets, tech students, practice managers, people that pre-vets just to know. I mean, yeah, it's a NAVLE story about resilience, but it's bigger than that. And
Yeah.
and you brought us into a lot of life stuff you've walked through, and you've walked through it well. So thank you for showing us how to live life well at the intersection of two roads crossing a day.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you were blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.